Afternoon. My name is Kate Van Tassel. I am the Director of Special Projects here at HCR. And I'm joined by my colleagues Karis Rasmussen and Kathleen McCadden. Kat is our Chief of Staff. Karis and I work on her team. And we're very excited to talk to you today about the Pro Housing Communities Program. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to run through a quick presentation, and so I saw there are some folks. If you've seen me at some various conferences, this is going to be very familiar. But I'm also happy to answer any and all new questions. As we get into it, it's hard to have the presentation up and the read questions. So Karis will help me answer or kind of pull up those. And what I'll do is I'll run through the first part quickly, and then maybe pause for questions, and then we'll go into some details. All right. So we'll start with a quick overview of HCR, and then kind of why we're doing the housing communities or Pro Housing Communities program, and then talk about the program itself, and then details about the applications. All right, so hopefully most of y'all know this, but if not, Karis and Kat and I work for the state Homes and Community Renewal. We're the state's affordable housing agency. Our mission is to build, preserve, and protect affordable housing and increase homeownership throughout the state. We are actually, even though we're one family, one agency, we are technically a number of sub-agencies kind of put together. And the way I describe what we do is, in some ways, we're like a bank where we provide funding for new construction and preservation of affordable housing. We also buy loans through our Serenity May program for smaller homes. And we actually also act like a foundation, what I think of as a foundation, where we give a lot of grants to partners, either nonprofits or municipalities throughout the state for additional programs. And we're also a regulatory agency with our HCR programs. So we fund projects throughout the state. We're currently implementing our $25 billion second housing plan with a goal of building and preserving over 100,000 homes. As you can see, they're throughout the state. Everybody tends to focus on our new construction, which is obviously very, very critical and important, but we also actually spend nearly 60% of our significant funding on preservation of homes, and again, also through all sorts of venues and programs. So why are we here today, and why are we here with the Pro Housing Communities program? Because New York State needs every and all types of housing programs, or all types of housing and housing programs. We've actually had a number of conversations, even just today, about people relating their specific examples of folks in different stages of their life needing different housing types. And so these are just some examples of smaller homes in communities for seniors to downsize into, where seniors want to stay in their community. They raise their families there, their friends are there, but they don't need a 4-bedroom house anymore. But there's nowhere local for them to move, which could be a townhouse, an apartment, a manufactured home, that type of thing. And then the growing families that are having their second or third child or first child, they want that 4-bedroom house, but that's not the opportunity to move into it. As well as starter homes for that new couple, that new adult who starts to come out. So we need all types, each and every and all type of housing in places throughout the state. And a part of this is because our housing shortage has been growing over the past few decades. New York State is not alone in this. Much of the country is struggling with these same issues, but it's definitely affecting us. Certainly in the New York City metro, home prices and rent costs are up significantly. But it's not just a New York City or downstate program. All of our major cities and a lot of the counties throughout New York State are seeing that same pattern of rent prices and housing prices going significantly up. And this is a looming challenge. Excuse me, a looming challenge for New York State's future. We have bounced back from the pandemic, and over the last decade created over 1 million new jobs, which is fantastic, and we want to continue and keep doing on that job growth trajectory. But we only built over nearly 400,000 new homes, and so that mismatch over time, and not even over time, and starting now, we're certainly starting to hear from employers that they want to expand, they would like to expand, but they have trouble recruiting because the people that they're recruiting can't find housing that's local. And that is anything from manufacturing, higher education, all sorts of healthcare jobs, teaching jobs. That's true throughout the state. So in response to this growing challenge, the governor created the Pro-Housing Communities Program through executive order back in July of this past year. She announced it in July and the program opened in September. And so this program is designed to certify municipalities who are taking local steps to address this housing shortage. The applications are rolling. We're reviewing them as they come in for 90 days. Localities, and we're right in a little bit of an ambiguous period right now where if you apply, today and complete your application, at the moment, the becoming certified will provide you a preference for a certain number of state discretionary grants. And we'll go through the list of those in a little bit. But in the governor's budget proposal, there's a proposal to require the pro-housing community certification for those same grants. So it's not required today, but that is certainly the direction that we think it'll go after the budget passes. Although we have all certainly learned that the budget is a wild card process, but that's what we were proposing. So why should we apply? And so the folks on this call are, we know that most of you, if not all of you, have submitted a letter of intent, which we super appreciate. Even if you haven't, or you're just, curious about how the program works. We do want to start with this is that we are the housing agency, but we want to help build the movement that housing is a good thing for all of our throughout the state, and increases people's tax base, can have a mixed generation of populations through places, and is certainly been a benefit for the pro-housing communities that we've already talked to that have joined the program. It will both, a lot of it is also to boost these local efforts, and this is something we definitely want to clarify. In that we provide a number of different examples of tools that places throughout the country and throughout New York State have already used to increase their housing supply. But we definitely want people to choose the ones that make the most sense for them. So, whether that is ADUs or smaller lot sizes or streamlined permitting processes, by collecting information about what has worked throughout in places that have already doing this work, we want to be able to start sharing that throughout the rest of the state. And then, as I said, it will also provide you either the requirement or the preference for that grant program. So what do you need to do? We are asking people to start with a letter of intent from the municipality. There's no formal format for this, just kind of a letter of intent notifying us that you would like to apply. That helps us helps us keep track. It helps us set up our electronic systems to allow you to upload the correct data. So it doesn't have a specific format. We are asking that it is signed by someone official, and that could be, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the mayor or town manager, although that's great. Or it could be supervisor, it could be town board member. But basically we do want it to be somebody that is stepping forward and saying officially the municipality would like to apply. The next big chunk of the submission is the key background information, and these are templates that are on our website, and that includes a template to fill out about the zoning code analysis, as well as submitting your zoning map and a summary of your building permits for the previous 5 years. And so those are standard that we're asking for everybody who is going to be certified to submit that information. And then there's kind of two ways to become certified. So either document that your municipality has permitted enough growth over the past 3 years. And so this is, we just had a similar conversation about this today. This is targeted for localities that again, we want to give credit to people that have already taken these actions and have shown the growth and that the whole state needs. And so if you can show us that and document that through the permitting information, either through the census information or through your permits, then as long as you submit all the information, you're eligible to be certified. But that's one option, but it is a very big state, and so there are a variety of reasons why your locality might not be able to show previously that you fulfilled those requirements. So then we're asking people to submit a for their town local governing body to pass a pro-housing community resolution. And so we are requiring that is that template is also on our website. We're asking people to pass it as is. We're looking at a few language tweaks, but in general, but we haven't made them yet. But in general, we also do want to clarify, and we've had some confusion about this, that it is it's not a binding contract. It is a statement of values that your community is a pro-housing community. And so there are a number of examples in there, again, that are examples of ways that communities can choose to increase their housing stock. But we are not saying that people have to, it's not quite a checklist that you have to do all of these things in order to be a pro-housing community. But we do want you to join these values and say that we are going to take efforts to do what makes most sense in our locality. So what are our deadlines? The initial excuse me. In the initial designation, right now that's on a rolling basis, so you can submit whenever you're ready. And then we are reviewing them as the proposals as they come in. And then we will provide our determination within 90 days. But that has taken us the full 90 days as we've gotten kind of off the ground. It's an adventure creating a brand new program. It's quite fun, but we're still in our learning process. So we have been able to decrease that timing as we've learned a little bit more, but for a variety of reasons we still want to make sure that we have enough time to properly review all the materials. And so we have and will continue to provide the list of all the localities to the agencies providing the grants before their various deadlines. And then after the initial designation, we are asking people on an annual basis to submit the updated permit information for the previous year. So it's probably a little bit easier right now that we're in 2024. We would expect that if you're applying today, that you would have the information through 2023, and then next year we would ask that you resubmit just the updated 2024 information. Okay, so these are the programs, as I mentioned, that are the discretionary grants that are included in the pro-housing program. There's definitely a number of them from Department of State. The DRI and New York Forward are certainly one of the largest buckets. Housing, one of our own programs, the New York's Main Street program. And then a number of particular ESD programs, either the capital grants from Market New York, as well as the Regional Council Capital Fund, and then 2 specific funds that are targeted towards Long Island and the Mid-Hudson. And then the last kind of downstate one is the public, although there are some transit places upstate. So if you qualify, don't let me set it back. MEP program through DOT. So if you're dying of curiosity about who is the most recent locality, or whether your neighbors have applied or have been certified, we do have a dashboard that is updated about once a week with the people who the localities have either submitted a letter of intent or have submitted all their requirements. And so you can see on the map that we've got places all over the state have expressed interest, and a number of those have already completed all their applications. And so the link to this is on our pro-housing website. What about counties? This is a question we get a fair amount. Right now, the current status is limited to cities, towns, and villages, which is the direct level of housing control over, who have the particular control over approving housing. We are collecting feedback on potential opportunities if that could be expanded in the future. And then this is also just a list of the types of other funding programs that we do have. So where can you get more information? As I have alluded to, we do have a website. That's our on the HCR website. That is the Pro Housing Community Program. And that site has recordings of these webinars. I believe that, I'm not sure right now, actually this deck is on there, but we will make sure that that gets posted as well, so you can go back and take a look. And it also has the templates and as well as instructions and kind of guidelines of how to fill out the instructions. And then also very importantly is our email address, the prohousing@hcr.ny.gov. And so if you pretty much for everything, if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you have submissions, or you want to send a letter of intent, that's the place to send it to. Full disclosure, that goes to myself and Karis, but it is very helpful for us to keep that, to keep all of our pro-housing kind of documentation in one spot. So we appreciate that. So I'm going to pause there and answer some of the initial questions, if any have popped up in the chat, and I'll answer more at the end too. But then after that, we'll go into more specifics about the templates themselves if folks have already taken a look. So, all right, Karis, do we have any questions?
Yes, we have two so far. One is, if a locality passes a resolution and is still not able to meet the requirements, are they allowed or are they not allowed to be redesignated the following year?
That is a great question, and we're certain at the moment we are planning on if you resubmit your information, if you pass the resolution and you resubmit your your most recent permit information, then you would continue to be certified.
And then we have one, if your town has site plan law instead of zoning, can it still apply?
That is also a great question. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so as that, at my favorite stat is there are over 1,500 localities in New York State, and I swear every single one has their own version of how they manage their housing growth. And so we definitely want to track the site plan processes throughout the state as well, to understand again, as I said, what tools might make it easier or more straightforward to build housing. So yes, people can still apply. Also, if you don't have zoning at all or site plan, if you don't have any zoning, which is possibly more common than I had realized, but we don't need people to create zoning for this program by any means. But there are places that don't have any zoning. We've also had places that submitted, they have like 80 different zoning districts, which feels like a lot. Most are between 5 and 15. So, but if you don't have zoning, you don't need to create it, but we do ask that you just let us know. Again, it exists, we believe it, but we just want to understand that there's no existing zoning and that's why you're not submitting it. As opposed to, we just don't feel like it. If you have it, we do want to see the information.
All right, we've got one more. Does a town list village growth if village zoning is autonomous from town?
That is a great question. Also, again, one of the fun quirks about New York State. So we would say no. And if it becomes a challenge, you can contact us directly. But in general, we want to both give credit for and acknowledge the things that are within your control. So if the rest of the town manages one area, you can submit for that. And then if you don't have the villages kind of is independent, you don't have to worry about them. We've also had people, sometimes towns and villages are related, they submit together, that's okay too, but you don't have to.
Sorry to come in quick, let me scroll back up. What if you're a village without a building department? Since your town does that function and your town does not do the pro-housing certification, is the village not eligible for those grants in this slide?
That is, I swear we find something new every day. That is a new one. I am not sure. I would actually ask, I would have to look into that. And so what I would ask, if you want to follow up with us afterwards, we can kind of dig into that a little bit more. But I hear you, but we'd have to think about that. So we're happy to follow up.
Does it have to be new builds or can it include property converted into apartments?
Absolutely. It can not just property converted to apartments. Our goal is to increase the number of places that new households can live, new families, new individuals, everybody can live. So not only would it include conversions to, say, if you split a large house into 2 condos, that would count. If you add an ADU, that would count as new housing. Even if you are able to rehabilitate a house that had been abandoned and is now livable, that's a new unit. That's a place where somebody can live. So we're definitely counting all of those as new homes. So you can get credit for all of those types of things. So certainly multifamily does qualify, but even new single family homes, we would count them. As long as we're calling it net new homes. There are definitely places, not just in New York City, but other places too, where if you are reducing the number of homes, for example, by combining two homes into one, we actually would like to know that, because that again is that's going the other direction.
Thanks, Kate. The City of Rochester contains planned development districts, custom zoning districts for large institutional type developments, for example, the University of Rochester. They are drafted by the city and the property owner and made law by City Council. I'm making the assumption that these custom districts don't need to be included in the chart, but want to confirm.
We do want to be able to track them, but I hear it because I believe there's a category for planned unit districts. I haven't actually reread the instructions on that for a little bit. But so we at least want to capture them so we can track it, but we're also happy. That sounds like another one where if you want to follow up with us directly, we can have a more in-depth conversation about the specifics. I believe, like I said, there's a category for that type of district.
Will communities that actually create new housing get preference over communities that did not but passed the resolution?
At the moment, we are, as long as you take the steps and create the intention to create the housing, as long as you're certified, then you're going to get either the requirement or the moment of preference. I will say the reason I kind of hedge that a little bit is that we're not even a full year into the program, and so we do think it'll evolve over time, but certainly at the moment that's the plan.
Towns located in the Adirondack Park are subject to APA land use zoning. Would this information need to be included in the application?
That is also a great question. We've had a couple conversations with folks who are in the Adirondacks, as well as organizations, and so it depends on. Let's see. So again, I'm trying to. I assume you're asking if you need to submit for what the APA requirements are, and initially I would say no. We'll try and collect that more globally, but if you have specific questions, we can follow up directly. I do think a lot of places in the Adirondack Park, which is super unique, I think possibly in the country. That there are places that those are actually a number of the places that don't have any zoning at all because it's governed by somebody else. So hopefully that helps.
Right. This program seems to be promoting sprawl. Why are we promoting growth in every town? Shouldn't we be protecting agriculture and natural landscapes and promoting growth around existing infrastructure and existing village city centers?
Sure, we definitely think that we've worked with our partners at DEC, and I think that we prefer to encourage is that smart growth and encouraging growth, smaller amounts of growth throughout the state as opposed to trying to concentrate it in one or two villages. It often is a regional, not often, is a regional problem that each individual town or village can't solve on its own. But certainly the values and the programs that the governor has encouraged, as well as the program, even the types of tools that are listed in the resolution are targeted towards doing infill, creating more transit-oriented development, if that's an option for your community, to be smart about development, with the clear logic that by creating that infill in already developed areas, then that actually does protect places like the Adirondacks as well as agricultural farmland.
All right, I think you got them all for now.
Okay, all right. So we got them all for now. Going to the second half, and then we'll pause again for our next round of questions. Okay, so this is just kind of a high-level overview of walking through the actual templates themselves. I think if you open them, sometimes they look a little like, oh, that's a lot, but they're actually tried to be designed to be pretty straightforward. So just to start with the purpose of our zoning template is that just as a larger initiative, the state is working on improving all of our publicly available GIS layers to have publicly available mapping per the mapping program. And so one of those goals is to be able to have comparable zoning understanding of places throughout the state. And so this will take us a little while, but it is doable. There are other states that have this, and so we're looking to implement that. This is a screenshot of New York City, which has done a lot of work in this area, and as you can see, they're also quite complicated. But eventually, we're not going to get there tomorrow, but I think this is eventually one of the examples of how to share this information publicly across the board, both to provide examples of examples that other towns or localities can look at and learn from throughout the state. So who should fill it out? It is designed to streamline some specific information from the zoning code into the format. And it is designed to be filled out by someone that is familiar with the zoning code. I know I keep coming back to this, but every locality does it differently. So that might be a planning board, a code department, a planning department, zoning department, take your pick. There's all sorts of variations. But if there is a zoning code, and as we've said, some places don't have it, but if there is one, then there would be somebody that who is relatively familiar with it and is able to go through it. It's not a mathematical analysis or a time, it's more just kind of reviewing the code and answering a set of questions about what's included in there. So for reference, it is also based on the National Zoning Atlas project, which is a national project to do similar exercises throughout the country. Connecticut has completed their whole state. The Long Island Community CDC has created a version of this for Long Island locally. They're based out of Cornell. And so we based our templates on that. And the estimates is that it should take about 1 to 2 hours for a small locality, and a larger one will take 2 to 3 hours. And again, if you are the town or the city, I think that was a city that has 80 districts, that's going to take you a little bit longer. But if your average is 5 to 15, it hopefully shouldn't take too long. So it is an Excel model. It's designed to collect it consistently throughout the state. And it has 4 tabs that you're going to fill out. And throughout, you're going to fill out the light yellow cells, and everything else should update automatically. So this is actually an important step on that first tab. You're going to get, that's the summary. You're going to select your town from the dropdown, as opposed to typing it in, because if you select it, it'll pre-fill a number of just some information throughout the spreadsheet. And then we're asking just to fill out the contact information. So the second tab is the list of zoning districts, and this is found in the zoning code. Often it's online, but if not, sometimes the zoning office or planning office would have a specific copy. Sometimes they have a master list where they're all listed in one spot. Sometimes it's just kind of throughout the zoning code, but we are to create one summary code with the name, the abbreviation, in each one for each row. And then in column D, you would click on the primary use of that zoning district. And as you can see here, they're either primary residential, mixed, planned residential district. So I see, so that is, I knew there was one in there. So I understand that is slightly different than more of a different type of planned university district, but we would think of those kind of similarly. But those are the 5 categories that we're trying to pull everything together. There is an instructions document, a PDF, that's goes into more extensive detail on and guidance on how to categorize these districts, kind of looking through the text. So then on the third tab, this is the district details. And so once you've filled out the previous tab, these the top sections will automatically populate. And then there is a list of questions that we're asking that you fill out for each district. And that is mainly focused on residential, but also has a number of questions about things like lot size and yard size and parking requirements, things like that. And so because each zoning code is different, some of that information might be right there in that same section. Sometimes parking is a good example. Sometimes it has its own section. But generally that information is all in there. And we should say for this and for the next one, if there's a question that isn't relevant to a certain district or to your, doesn't exist in your zoning code, that's okay. You know, we wanted to capture as much as existed, but if it's not included in your particular zoning, that's okay too. And then on this one, the last tab will have a summary tab, and this should include all the information from the previous tab, more in just kind of one table. And what we're going to use this for is to match it with the GIS map submitted at the same time. Okay, so zoning. Hopefully, for most people, you'll have to fill that one out once, unless you rehaul your zoning code, which some people do. But in general, that's not going to change as much. On the housing permit data template, this is designed to help us track housing growth over time, as well as a number of other particularly time factors on how long things take to get built. It is based on the U.S. Census building permit survey. So this is the source that we used last year and have used this year. This is obviously a census source where the census sends this form out to all localities, and most fill it out, although not all, throughout the entire country, not just New York State. And one of the things that we heard when we used this data last year in last year's budget, and we heard from folks like, oh, we didn't actually fill out that form, or we misunderstood that form, and so you didn't give us enough credit for the actual housing growth that we had. And that's definitely possible. You know, census is sometimes extrapolating that data. So one of the reasons we created this template is we wanted to give people the opportunity to, if the data was categorizing correctly in the census, for us to make sure that we have an understanding of your growth. And so this one is often mainly from the building department, but also the planning department. The question earlier about the site plan department, that would be on our planning permits. So it is, again, as always, everything is tracked differently. I will say too, similarly, this template is has a number of columns, seems very extensive, and has some columns that seem repetitive. Part of that is because there's not necessarily a statewide standard for how people describe similar information. And so we do want to clarify that if your locality doesn't have a certain category, you don't need to dig for it or create it. We wanted to be as expansive as possible, because again, if you have the information, we would definitely want to include it. But we also wanted to make sure that we're capturing kind of how things are framed similarly in different places. And so this is also, again, a couple tabs of summaries similarly to the other one. If you'll want to select your municipality name from the drop down, and then the bottom section should auto-populate. Particularly on this template, this second tab is the data that we already have from the U.S. Census. And so if you've selected your locality, that should automatically populate on this section here in the white cells. So those are the data that are from the census. And again, the yellow cells up here, we are asking you to complete if they match. So say I forget who this is, might be Sleepy Hollow, although I'm not entirely sure. As an example. So if 446 is correct, then you would just fill that out again up here. And then it is automatically set up so that once you enter that, so you can get if you think the census is correct, great. This locality definitely grew over the past 3 years. But if these are both red, then you wouldn't automatically qualify. But if then you fill out your yellow section because, maybe you submitted on the form that you only had 2 new, for whatever reason, you said 2, but that actually was 2 apartment buildings that had 40 units, that would increase your numbers significantly. And so that's the type of difference why this is here. And so this will also change to red or green. And if any one of these is green, then your locality would be qualified just for certification. And so I kind of previewed this a little bit. This is on the planning permits tab. we are asking for available information on planning permits. And so this might be your planning board, your site planning board, your zoning board. Basically, the idea is that if a project is not as of right, which is true in a lot of places in the state, and you have to get some sort of approval before your building permit approval, then we would like to track that information. And similarly here, this is not every process is going to have all of these steps, but if you do have, or all of these pieces, but if it does, we would ask that it be included. And then similarly for building permits, as much information as is possible. This is based on a New Jersey form that everybody has to fill out every year. And so similarly here, there's a lot of information, but if you don't track, or you track separately the breakdown of square footage, that where that's not tracked, that's okay. But again, if you do have it, that's helpful. But in particular, we're looking for, again, and also this is also pretty important, the increase or decrease of net housing units. So I think I mentioned that a little bit before, but only in terms of building permits, we're looking for either new construction or, as I said, full kind of gut rehabilitation. So if somebody is adding on a new kitchen, or adding another floor to their home, you don't need to kind of dig through that information and pull that in. We are looking for an increase or decrease in the net housing units in your locality. And so similarly to the zoning template, after you fill it all out, it should populate on the last slide. And so that'll help us kind of build our databases over time, and go from there. Okay, so that's my second half. Putting back up, this is again our website. I often will Google, just Google pro housing, even though I work here. That's one of my secret ways to get in there. And then, as I said, that website that email address is the best way to reach both Karis and I. And thank you for your patience. We are trying to respond to everybody as soon as possible. And talk to people. I know that most localities, everybody wears, we're joking, everybody wears 70 hats, and we only have like 15 hats, but so we have a lot of sympathy for everybody that's checking a lot of stuff. And so we appreciate you guys working with us and applying to the program. Okay, let's go back to questions.
All right, first one, will the submission ID fill in after it is submitted?
Submission ID, I believe so. I haven't, yes. And if not, then, occasionally we're having some trouble with the actual spreadsheet templates. And so if it's not doing that, let us know.
Okay, for Adirondack towns, do we fill in the Adirondack Park Agency zoning codes and descriptions? And is there anything else that Adirondack communities should know about how to deal with second homes, cabins, short-term rentals, properties?
Yep. So those are both great questions. I would say, we haven't inputted this yet, but I think because the Adirondack zoning is similar throughout the whole park region, I think we can, as long as you notify us and make sure that we can verify that it is part of that zoning code, we'll have kind of a master version of that we can upload. In terms of the second homes and Airbnbs, it is also a great question. It's not just limited to the Adirondacks. We heard that a ton whenever we go out throughout the state. There's all sorts of different types of communities that are where that's a challenge. At the moment, we're still just kind of collecting the raw data about housing. But I think it is a good note of us maybe adding some sort of distinction that if even for us to track the second homes, we'll kind of take that back and take a look at it.
Does conversion of a residence to a short-term vacation rental count as a decrease?
That's a good question. I would think so. In terms of, again, our goal is to increase the amount of housing that people can live in. But if that is, sometimes if that is more challenging to track, let us know and we'll circle back. But at the moment, I would count that as a decrease.
I think that's all I see right now. Please let me know if I missed any, but I don't see any others.
Great. All right. Okay. If there's no more questions, thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope this was helpful. We will repost this on our website, certainly the deck, if nothing else, as well as the potentially the recordings, or not potentially the recording. And as I said, feel free to contact us. We've been very happy to set up some kind of quick touch base calls, 15 minutes, half an hour. If we're not able to answer your question over email, sometimes it's easier to just talk it through, and we are always happy to do that. I think we had 3 or 4 today. But they're fun. We get to learn about places in New York State and get to resolve issues a little more easily. So if you're interested in that, just drop us an email and we'll set it up. Well, thank you again, everybody. I hope everybody has a lovely rest of the afternoon, and we will look forward to hearing from you again soon.